pitches against one of the reasons we're 11-1 with Erod is that he gets good matchups the other way going with him. So, put him at 3, make him go against a third starter of another team. And I think I would have David Price in the bullpen for anywhere from 1 to 3 innings. And
we saw what it was last year.
Yeah, and
he looked great.
And then if we do make it to the ALCS and Wright's pitching really well, well, there you go. You can have Wright. If he's not pitching really well, all right, then you have Price just pitch the fourth game, and then he's fine. So it's a good problem to have. I think David Price out of the bullpen is very valuable, especially if you look back at the last couple of years of how baseball's been played in the playoffs, which just get 5 innings and here comes the bullpen. So let's get me 5 or 6 innings from Sale, Porcello, and Erod, and then let's have David Price come in, game 2 and game 3, or game 3 and game 5 or something, and throw 3 innings, 2 innings, and get it over to Kimbrel.
I love that idea.
Ideally, you let Sale do his thing and go as long as he wants, And then if it's a Chris Sale start, then he goes 7 innings, then the bullpen can do that game.
Yep.
And then maybe if one of the other starters, only goes 6, like, Rick does every now and then, or Erod does when they throw too many pitches in the first inning, which they seem to always do at this point, then you get David for that last half of that game.
Well, here's the thing, though, and like I was saying, I love the idea of Price coming in relief, especially if it works out like it did last year. But the thing is, with him pitching as well as I had to just admit that he was pitching, would he be okay with that role, or would he demand a start?
Well, if you like it, he can opt out.
Well,
I mean, that's the thing, though. You want to say that you're a team player. You want to say that, you're a good locker room guy. And I think every single player that he's played for said he's a good team guy, he's a good locker room guy. And if for a guy that's never won a postseason start, a guy that doesn't have a ring, and has all these different accolades, on the shelf, go in the bullpen and help your team. Do whatever is going to help your team. And I think if you look back at these Red Sox teams, that won World Series, you see guys like Wakefield, and you saw guys like Derek Lowe, ship it down and make that walk from, the dugout to the bullpen in the 7th, 8th inning of tie games and extra innings, just in case they were needed, because they wanted to help the team win. I think Cora will tell Price, this is where you're going to help. This is helping the team. You're going to help us win. And, that doesn't mean that Price can't go 2 games in a row and pitch 6 innings that way. He could pitch game 2 and 3 at the ALDS, 3 innings in each, and there's 6 innings. You get 6 innings from Erod, 6 innings from Porcello, 6 innings from Price. I mean, the innings work out the same, so he's still getting his hands on the ball. It's still high leverage situations. So I think that if he doesn't like it and tries to pitch, I think you just tell him to screw and go help the team. This is, it's not your call.
It's the ultimate show me moment to see if you're a team player or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if he does start, and I feel like the more likely scenario is that he will start, as much as I like you guys' scenario.
I agree. Yeah.
Hopefully, it'll be like a game 3 or 4, and not one of the earlier games. That way, because if we're up 2-0 and then he gets a start, then at least we have some momentum, and the pressure is a little lower for him. And I forgot where I was going. And the leash would be really short, hopefully, given his past. And then you bring in, I'm guessing, a Stephen Wright or whatever to try to keep us in the game. And hopefully we'll have some bats, consistent hitting at that point.
Yeah, I think that, I do agree. I think Price is going to end up starting. He might even be the 2 at this point, honestly, just because of the way, it is David Price, and, Sale, Price, Porcello makes sense. But I think it makes sense to have him as the 3, make Porcello the 2, just because Erod doesn't go deep into games. I think that's, his only Achilles heel. You don't want to have your game 2 starter go 5 innings at 102 pitches, So I think Price ends up, game 3, and you could definitely see a bullpen game with Price where it comes out with Wright's out, or Velasquez is out, or Kelly's out in the 6th, Barnes out in the 7th, and you never know. Cora said he'll throw Kimbrel out there for an inning or 2. So, The playoffs will be interesting. Obviously, I think we'll get there. I don't know if we're going to win the division or the wild card, but at this point, I mean, we'd have to really mess this up to not make the playoffs at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how aggressive Cora is in managing that.
Well, that's another scenario too. We don't know. We might not have the luxury of setting our lineup the way we want, our rotation, I mean.
Right.
Because last year, I mean, like we kind of talked about in the last episode, it got kind of iffy that maybe Sale was going to have to start game 162, which I think would have pushed him back to game 2 of the series. So who knows? And then it could be like the ultimate worst case scenario, like what the Diamondbacks had in that wild card game where they burned through Greinke to start with, and then Robbie Ray for a few innings, and he didn't look that good. And that was the one instance where the wild card game really can kill you for the whole series, because they got swept by the Dodgers after sweeping them only weeks earlier, earlier in September. So it's fun to talk about right now, but I mean, we're going to probably be laughing at ourselves in late September thinking, wow, we were way off. This is what it could come down to for all we know. Yeah. It's fun to talk about though.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some Orioles here, since we're talking about pitching anyway. Stephen Wright goes tomorrow, and I gotta tell you guys, he's my favorite pitcher to watch. It's just so mesmerizing, and how he's able to get outs, fairly, easily. And even if runners gets on, it just seems like he's always getting out of the jams. And
he does one thing that Pomeranz can't do, and that's pitch himself out of a jam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jams that he gives himself into, too, which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's something always little, and I love watching Wright. I mean, it's funny. You don't have to worry about his pitch count because he's a knuckleballer, so it's not even like he's throwing hard. So you just kind of let him go, and it just bases off of, all right, is he getting in trouble? Is he getting fatigued? That's what it comes down to. I mean, it's not like a pitch count like you're worried about, an innings limit. It's just like, all right, is he looking tired? Is knuckleball stop dancing? All right, let's get him out of there. Or it just doesn't have it that night and people are crushing it. But, I like the matchups. I love Wright right now, and he's been pitching really well, and I think that he should have another good game. I mean, I know Terry thinks that he's going to have another good game, and I don't think why shouldn't he at this point?
Yeah, well, there's nothing more beautiful in baseball, and I've said it before on here, than when a knuckleball is dancing the way his does. I mean, it's unhittable. We saw it in Detroit.
Yeah.
He's up against Dylan Bundy, who is finally kind of turning his season around, and I guess that started a month ago. He had a insane 14 strikeout game, which I think was coming off of a game or two before where he gave up like a historic 7.
Yeah, the Royals game.
Gave up quite a few runs in the first inning anyway. So that seemed to be his wake-up call. And he had 7 shutout innings against the Mets in his last start. And
yeah, he had a complete game against the White Sox 2 starts ago, 14 strikeouts.
Okay, yeah, so he's doing pretty well, a 2.45 ERA in his last few starts. So, not a guy I like to face when he is pitching well. Even though he's a righty, he kind of reminds me of a John Lester type guy, just kind of like a bulldog that just can get through a game and a top of the rotation guy. When he is pitching well.
Yeah, he'll throw the ball pretty hard too. So. It'll be interesting. I mean, he lowered his ERA from a 5.3 to a 4.04, so really, cut it down a lot. But, it's a tough start against the Red Sox. And if you look at the lineups that he's faced the last couple of times, the Mets stink. Washington hit him a lot, 11 hits. They just couldn't get a lot of runs across, so, he kind of got lucky only giving up 3 runs there. The White Sox, not a great hitting lineup, as we saw recently, as this weekend. And then the Red Sox, he went 6 innings and gave up 4 earned runs. So, and then Tampa, 0 earned runs. Tampa doesn't hit well. And then Kansas City, he got blown up. LA got blown up. Tampa Bay got blown up. So, I think if he faces a decent lineup like Boston, he's going to struggle. And I hope that the top of the lineup comes to play, because if they have to pitch these guys like Bradley and Devers and Sandy and all these guys with runners on, they can't just throw balls in the dirt all the time. And that's what's going to help the bottom of the lineup, because The bottom of the lineup cannot produce runs on their own. They need some protection with guys on the base.
Well, he's one of those that you got to hit early. You have to hit him early, otherwise he gets that confidence when he gets to the bottom of the lineup where you have the strikeout guys.
Yeah, he gets.
When a guy like that gets confidence, I mean, they are hard to stop.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, and I mean we should have the lineup that should be able to score runs off of him. But I mean, on the flip side of the coin, we can say, well, he's kind of catching us at the right time as well, because we haven't hit well the last week or so.
We're headed in different direction.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that could be a potentially low scoring game. With hopefully some runs late from us once we get to their bullpen. But so it's an interesting matchup either way. Probably my favorite matchup of the whole series, really. So
it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Erod goes on Tuesday, and he's up against David Hess, and I'm simply at this point just not going to worry about Erod until he gives me a reason to.
Especially against the Orioles, he always pitches well.
Yep.
Except for that one time, he broke his knee, and John Farrell made him go out and pitch.
Right.
Every game's a his game.
He does well against his team, so like you said, there's no reason not to worry about him. Could this be the start that that stinker that he's due? Probably it could be, but I think right now he's fine. That should be a win. That should be the win game right there, and we should pick up either the right one or the last game of the series.
Like you said, though, we're not going to worry until he gives us a reason to worry.
Yeah, absolutely. He is up against a guy named David Hess, who I have not seen pitch, but looking at the notes here, he's had 5 starts so far, pitched very well, especially in the last 3 where he has a 0.96 ERA. Only gave up 2 runs basically in 18 2/3 innings. So one of those young pitchers that we're not familiar with that could kind of dazzle us in a way. So
he could, but his last loss was against the Red Sox, against Erod actually. And he gave up 5 earned runs in 4 2/3. So.
Oh, my bad. I didn't realize we had faced him.
Yeah, we faced him. Similar, a little bit different. And in that game, we had a very similar lineup to what we're going to have right now, minus Betts. It was Mookie, Benintendi, Moreland, JD, Devers, Nunez, Holt, Vasquez, Bradley.
Okay.
Who did the damage? Do you have it?
Yes, I do. It was Benintendi with 3 hits. 2 RBIs, JD Martinez with 2 hits, 3 RBIs.
Sounds good to me.
Up top of the lineup doing the damage, and Holt went 2 for 3, and Bradley 1 for 3, Vasquez 1 for 4, Nunez 1 for 4, Devers 0 for 4. So, top of the lineup needs to do the work.
Yeah, and hopefully they do. Then on Wednesday, Chris Sale against Andrew Kashner, who is not having a very good year.
I just want them to score runs for him.
We should tee off on Kashner, and Sale should
He's got to be frustrated.
Oh, God, he's got to be so frustrated.
Well, he's one of those guys that signed late, and as I've pointed out, many of those guys just haven't panned out. Lance Lynn, I haven't checked at him.
Odorizzi.
Yeah, Odorizzi, right. I'm drawing blanks now. Holland is a reliever, but he's been garbage. Basically the only one, Darvish was the other one, signed late, and I think he's on the DL right now.
Yeah, he's not pitching before the All-Star break, more than likely.
Right.
Yeah, so Lance Lynn has, in his last 4 games, he's had 4 quality starts, but his ERA is a 5.08 still.
Okay.
When you have 4 quality starts and you still have a 4 ERA, it's not good.
Well, that's how bad his start was, so it sounds like, at least for the Twins' sake, he is kind of coming around.
Yeah, he's turning around. He's got a 5 ERA still, though. So, like you said, it's a bad start. But, Kashner, his last 3 games, he's had quality starts as well, I believe, or 2 out of the last 3 quality starts. But they're barely quality starts. It's 3 earned runs, over 6 with, 3 walks and 4 strikeouts. So he's not...
It's like towing the line.
Yeah, he's literally towing the line. He's doing bare average right now and not setting up his team to really do much. He's also taking losses the last couple times about that. dude's got to be frustrated. And going up against Sale, he knows he has to be pretty perfect. So, I honestly, if we get past the